But yeah, you got two paths. You got a path where you can be consumed by it and it's your identity, or you can have a path where you can lean into it, learn from it, grow from it.
Today on the podcast, we have Torry McAlvain. Torry is a native to Boise, Idaho, and he's the president, actually a third-generation president of McAlvain Construction, which is an extremely dynamic Idaho-based commercial contracting company. It's one of the largest, most successful companies in the Northwest. Torry is a fantastic leader. He's a dynamic individual, has overcome a lot in his life, and he just was a great guest today, helping us understand struggle, personal development, resilience, and making decisions at scale running a large construction company. So with no further ado, I give you Torry McAlvain. All right, Torry McAlvain, welcome.
So, man.
It's good to have you.
Yeah.
What's new in Torry's world? What are you up to these days?
My kids are keeping me busy.
How many do you have?
4.
How old are they?
So Aria, my daughter, actually this morning, she was telling me she's 8, but she's still 7.
She
turns 8 in March. So I got Aria, who's 7, Crew, who just turned 6, Skyla, who just turned 4, and then Kane, who's 4 months old. Or actually just turned 5 months old.
Did you want 4? I mean, tell me, was you guys planning on a big family? Did you know you wanted that many?
Yeah, I did. Both my mom and my dad came from a family of 4.
Okay.
And I just thought it was always cool. Like seeing my grandpas and my grandmothers, but just seeing all the kids around them and the grandkids and great-grandkids, that's something I've always just wanted. Luckily for me, Jillian wanted a big family too. She came from a big family too, and all of her parents and siblings and whatnot. So yeah, we've always wanted a big. I could do one more. Yeah.
What about her? Could she do one more?
She would do one more if she just had somebody else carry and gave birth. Yeah.
Skip that part. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, a lot of people come, they want something different from what they grew up with. Sounds like you guys kind of wanted to replicate what you grew up with.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, at the end of the day, when I'm older, I want to be surrounded by family. To me, that's like my ultimate legacy. What I can leave behind is just the memory and, having my offsprings and whatnot.
It's interesting you're already mentioning that word because it's always something I like to talk about. And I think as men especially, we think about a lot, this concept of legacy, like what that means and what we leave behind. How do you think about that now that you're getting into the point where, I hate to say this, but we're getting like middle-aged. I can't believe it. But we are. And we've got families and businesses. How do you think about what you want to leave behind? And then what is it that you want to leave behind when you're gone?
Yeah. No, I've been thinking about this one a lot. So my dad passed away in November 2024. So this is something I've definitely been thinking about. And, everything happens for a reason, and you always got to take the good with the bad. So, and it allowed me at an earlier age, I'm 38, or excuse me, I just turned 39.
Okay.
But being 38, now 39, these are all the things I've been thinking about for the last year. And quite frankly, I'd rather be thinking about this at a younger age than, 45, 46 or 50, just waking up one day like, who the hell am I? And, what do I want and all this stuff. So it kind of forced me into an uncomfortable position, which I'm grateful for. But for me, it's like at the end of the day, like I enjoy what I'm doing. I love the chase, the grind, building things as far as business goes and all that stuff. And there was a point in time where I thought my true worth and what mattered the most was whatever I built here on this earth and what I can leave for my kids, like financially, like that was the most important thing. And I can say that's all changed because at the end of the day, my kids aren't going to remember me for how much money I left them.
How has that changed? Do you remember like something happened?
Well, yeah, it's just me thinking about the experience I went through with my father's passing. Okay. Specifically that. And just thinking really what really matters. And what matters is just the relationship, how we cultivate our kids and, the mindset that we give them. The greatest thing my dad ever gave me was right here in between my 2 ears, by far. Just the way I think. That's the greatest gift he ever gave me. So for me to be able to give back to my kids a mindset that can take them throughout this life is probably the most important thing. And the memories I'm going to create with them. It's the mindset and the memories are the two most important things that I feel like I can leave behind for them.
So and it sounds like that shifted pretty significantly for you when your dad passed away. Was that sudden?
Yeah. The death.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was a suicide.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So it was definitely sudden.
I am so sorry about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be something that's just changes your family,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. But yeah, you got two paths. You go down, you got a path where you can be consumed by it and it's your identity, or you can have a path where you can lean into it, learn from it, grow from it, and, just and keep going forward.
Torry, you seem to be a guy that has learned how to do that. You've been through a lot of stuff in your life, ups, downs, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been down some of the similar paths, so I think it's easy for me to recognize in somebody else. And you seem to have been able to wrap your arms around this philosophy of, hey, roll with the punches, learn what you can learn from it, move forward. Have you always been that way? Is that a skill? Or is that something that you've always had where you feel like you can just pick yourself up and go more?
Yeah, I think I've just naturally have had that. I've learned for sure over the years as I gotten older, but naturally I've just always had an optimistic mindset. I always figured there was nothing really in my mind that I figured I couldn't achieve just through hard work or just like manifestation or whatever. I just naturally have always thought like that.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think that comes from?
It was probably a lot to do, being a kid. My dad was very confident growing up. So probably seeing confidence from him growing up for sure was a part of it. Maybe making me or myself believe, in addition to his words of encouragement, that, you can do anything that you put your mind to and work hard for. So that's probably a part of it. I had 2 father figures besides my dad. My 2 grandfathers, they were like my father figures. I was lucky to be raised by those 2 as well, and both successful in their own right, family and financial. So seeing those 2, same thing, just confidence with all these men in my life. Playing sports clearly was a great thing. Just being a young kid, going through the ups and downs, injuries, the records throughout the season, all that kind of stuff. It just teaches you just to keep going and keep pushing and all that stuff. So I think it's just a combination of sports, being younger, these male influences in my life. And I've just been a curious individual. I've just always been curious to learn new things. And it's just a combination of all those things.
Talk a little bit about your childhood growing up. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
So I grew up in Meridian, Idaho, back when there was 20,000 people here, in cornfields and a few stoplights. So that's changed. So I grew up, went to Lake Hazel Middle School, and then went to Meridian High School, and then Mountain View opened my junior year. So transferred over there to graduate from Mountain View in 2005. My parents got divorced when I was 14, and that was a big milestone in my life that really changed more or less the trajectory and kind of built the foundation of who I am. At that point in time, I really leaned into sports a lot. My dad was a great man, great father, very busy in his own right with, what he was doing and pursuing at his time. Lived with my mom and my sister, and just, like most teenage boys, didn't really want to talk about my emotions or anything like that. So that's why I just really dove into sports and just found myself in doing so, just really understanding what teammates are, brotherhood is, all that kind of stuff, and just going all. I mean, that's how I got a lot of validation too, growing up, to be honest, was how good I was on the field. Or maybe that's what I perceived to be validation for me. I knew I can get people's attention, my parents specifically, how good I was on the sports field.
Meridian High and Boise State.
Yeah, Boise State. So graduated 2005, went to Boise State, walked on, played football. Actually played with you. I had a lot of good times, put it that way, in college. So that's when Coach Hawk was coaching. Coach Pete was offensive coordinator. Walked on, wide receiver. I feel like I had a good time and whatnot. The problem was that I was 18 years old, didn't really know at that point in time really what was important to me, what I wanted. I was naturally good enough, well enough to play football like most of us were. I just didn't have the mindset part down to where I was disciplined and couldn't stay focused. So I had, I partied a lot and did a lot of stuff. Got to a point where I actually got kicked out of school from academic probation twice. So
twice.
Twice.
You got back on and then you got off.
I got on and got off, and I'll never forget those conversations with Coach Hawk in his office. It was still to this day. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was very uncomfortable. But it was like, it was, that's when I don't regret anything, right? It's just, it made me who I am and whatnot. So once I got kicked off the second time, I remember we were at my parents' house, and one of my best friends at the time, Kyle Pike, was transferring down to UNLV to go play football.
Yep.
And all of our parents, I was like, all right, I want to go. I just need to get out of here. I need to do something. And all of our parents were like, dude, you're crazy. Like, no, that's Vegas. No way. And Todd's dad was just like, hey, just let him go. Like, let him try this out. Let him go explore and figure out who he is. And that was the greatest thing. That was like the second milestone in my life, was me actually going away, being on my own, having a job, working, taking care of myself essentially for a year and a half. Really got my life back in order. Of all places, was in Vegas. Had a lot of fun, but got my life back in order. Really got specific on what I wanted to do, what I wanted to achieve. Came back to Boise, enrolled back in Boise State, graduated at Dean's Honors List, all that good stuff in accounting, and that was kind of off and running.
I want to linger on this for a second because that's pretty unique. Like, a lot of kids who may be struggling with academics, don't really know who they are, partying, like struggle at Boise State. The answer for most kids would not be to go to Vegas.
I know.
But you go down there and kind of get your shit together, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, explain that. Well, how? Why? Why do you think that was?
I don't know. I think I have a unique ability. I have a lot of will drive. I knew what I wanted to go down there to do. I'm a very introspective individual. Even though I was partying, all that stuff, to some degree, I still had a level of awareness of who I was. Obviously, I was a lot more immature, younger, so not completely as much as I do today. But I had a natural ability to just have a little self-awareness. I always knew too. I was having fun. I was never horribly wrong, bad. Wasn't getting in any legal trouble. I was just exploring on who I was, and quite frankly, I was probably just letting go of outlets from some pain I had from my parents' divorce and whatnot. Just things I never talked about. So that's really what was going on. But I always had enough will and determination, and I kind of kept that all in check. So when I went down there, I was excited to go. I was excited to be on my own. I leaned into that uncomfortableness. I was excited to go work and, make my own money and lean into that uncomfortableness. And I just knew like what I wanted to do, and what I wanted to do outweighed any other temptations. Like, again, like I had fun down there. Like I drank and did some drugs and whatnot, but nothing could outweigh where I knew I wanted to go.
Where did you want to go? Where did you want to do?
I knew that's when I started realizing that I had a good opportunity to work in the family business. I really was attracted to numbers. Accounting was like my background. Numbers make sense to me. Either it's black and white. And I just, like I said, I knew I had an opportunity and I wanted to make the most of it. I didn't want to just be some statistic or some story of, oh, look, like this individual had this opportunity, like his grandfather was in the business, his dad was, and it just blew it. That was just never who I was. Like I felt a little expectations as well, like as far as like some weight on like a legacy and continuing that forward. But again, to me, that didn't burden me. I really leaned into that and I enjoyed that, and I got off on that, if that makes sense, knowing I can have the opportunity to carry something forward. So it's just me understanding what opportunity I had, me leaning into the competition and the legacy portion that I had an opportunity to carry forward. And that's what I knew I wanted to do and continue.
So I'm always interested in this because I think, especially as boys, there's almost always like an unspoken expectation or I don't want to say pressure because it depends on the parent, but when your dad does something and his dad before him did something, there's kind of an expectation that you're going to at least be interested in doing that thing. And then some families, they just flat out will say like, you're going to do this.
Yeah.
What was that like in your household growing up? Was it just understood you were going to be in McAlvain Construction?
Yeah, it was definitely something we didn't talk about. In hindsight, now that I'm a father, looking back at my dad, he was never, he wasn't anything specific. Like, you weren't expected to do this, but looking at his actions and how I was raised, he was definitely hoping, to say the least, that would be something I could be interested in. Quite frankly, but looking at my adolescence year, he's probably also worried, like, this is my guy. This is my guy.
Yeah.
But, being a father, you're right. Like, yeah, he knew he had an opportunity to do that. And, thinking about my sons too, like, if I had an opportunity to continue some, sure, I'd do it. So I totally get it. It was nothing specific we talked about. And that's how our relationship was. And I know we're going to get into it, like a father and son dynamic in the working environment.
Yeah. That's
how we rolled too. It felt like we were just always on the same page.
Yeah.
Nothing, never like, you shall do this, nothing explicit. We just were always on the same page and kind of, I don't know, maybe we were like this in past lives or something.
Maybe.
And we just worked together so well and we just kind of figured it out. But it was very natural for us.
Yeah. But it sounds like you weren't obviously opposed to following in his footsteps. At the same time, it sounds like you didn't know that's exactly what you wanted to do until maybe Vegas, you at college.
Yeah.
Like, talk about that a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. So when I came back here, I graduated. I graduated. That's when I met my wife, Jillian.
Okay.
I was going to go, once I graduated, I was going to go get my CPA, which means I needed to go get my master's at University of Utah.
Yep.
And that's the first time we had a conversation, because I was telling my dad, I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. I want to go get my CPA, be like a corporate accountant or whatever. And he's like, well, why don't you get a real education and come work for me? And that was the moment we started. So that was the first conversation.
Conversation you probably knew was coming at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reality is, too, so I'm big on expectations as it relates to I'm big on having the awareness of not having expectations, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
At that age, man, I was fully embraced in it, and I was in this bubble, and I was operating solely off of expectations. I can say that.
Yep.
Who I am now, I want to say, even though it might look the same, it's completely different from my side of the fence on how I operate in life. I do not operate within expectations. And even if my father was here, I wish he was here. The relationship that we were on the path to have, what I always thought was I needed to get validation for my father. This is like what's expected of me. And my whole world and my whole operating system was based off of those expectations. When the reality is I could have done anything I wanted in this world and he would have looked at me the same.
Right.
I just didn't know that because I didn't know what I didn't know at that time.
Yeah. But now you're a father.
But now I'm a father and I totally get it.
Do you ever think about what those conversations might look like with your kids in business and work and life?
Yeah, I do. And honestly, I don't even know if I'd want Crew or Kane to get in what I'm doing now. It's a lot. So as far as, every industry is different. Specific to the contracting industry, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectations, especially where the company is now. I think we have a little underneath 400 individuals. And we've kind of created this, in a good way, but we created this monster that needs to be fed continuously. Because who we are is we're not just going to hire all these people just to lay them all off. That's not our culture. We're going to organically grow. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to give opportunities.
Yeah.
So that the pressure that now comes with that to keep feeding the beast and the monster and to ensure that there's a sustainable plan for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want that for my kids, honestly.
Yeah. You got to line out a lot of projects.
Yeah, you got to line out a lot of projects, and quite frankly, you got to be a specific individual. You got to think a specific way. Strategy, losses can't hurt you, and you got to turn wins into losses. I don't know if my kids are going to think like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, back to some of your questions. Like, I think I'll do as much nurturing as I can to give them the mindset. You're a parent, just as well as I do. At the end of the day, though, I don't know if all that's going to stick with them. You know what I mean? I'm going to do the best I can.
Yeah.
But if they don't have that mindset where you're just getting, down in the dirt and you're trying to take the losses and turn them into wins. If they don't have that mindset, this industry would just completely consume you. And I don't want them to be consumed by that.
Construction is interesting. So I grew up in it. My dad was a general contractor. My childhood and kind of perspective on that business was, I think, different from yours because he lost everything when I was super young. So Schleckaway Construction in the 80s was a really big company. He was doing like schools in the Four Corners. He was doing some public works stuff around the country. Big office buildings, some single family, but mostly commercial construction. Mm-hmm. And then he was doing a really big job for MK when they went through one of their big restructurings, rolled over on him for a few million. And that was just like a domino that kicked down and took his entire company. So when I was really young, I don't know, I must have been 2 or 3. He had to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, lost everything. And so I grew up in construction with him, but it was much different in terms of just doing individual jobs and him trying to get back on his feet. And I was the gopher running around the job site doing all the things. But his perspective obviously was pretty tainted, losing everything. Mm-hmm. And he never really wanted to pursue like building a big construction company again. But I've often, wondered what would have been different and how my childhood would have been different if he would have been successful, kept on that same path, wouldn't have gotten rolled over on like he did. And so it's interesting for me to hear that story, from you. Mm-hmm. And one thing I will say, and leading to a question, is like, my dad and I have worked okay together, but not great. And so I always look at people like you and I wonder, like, what was that working relationship like between you and your father in construction? It's a high stress world, high expectations, time is of the essence, which is hilarious, right? Because in construction, you're always working yourself out of a job.
Yeah.
but we're always in a hurry.
Totally. We're working yourself right out of work.
We're always in a hurry to work ourselves out of a job in that business. Well, what was that like between you guys on a weekly basis?
Yeah, it was good. In hindsight, it was probably good on the surface level as it relates. When I say good specifically, like I respected him so much and he definitely had a lot of authority and he knew that too. Mm-hmm. So I was definitely a lot of a yes man for sure. But I worked so hard just to get that validation, man. And so, I worked fucking hard for that. So because I worked so hard, and because he's the individual he was, he appreciated that. Yeah. So we worked very well together. And, we didn't have, I don't even call him dad, honestly, until he passed away. Like he was always senior to me or Torry. So our level of respect during our work hours, like we were partners, business partners. We weren't father and son. Yeah. So, and that obviously comes with its own price, things that I've had to work through on my own growth and journey individually. But in the business world, that made a lot of sense and it worked very well for us. And he was proud. I know he was a proud father, but you never hear I didn't ever know how I was doing. I only knew if I was in trouble or if I was doing something bad. Yeah. Like that's the only thing I ever got out of him. But I respected him so much and I knew who he was. I stayed in my lane. I worked hard for him. I worked hard for the family and all that stuff, and it worked well. It worked well for us.
The decisions you're making for the company now, do you ever run it through the what would senior think about this filter?
I have, for sure. For sure. It's toned down a little bit, but for sure. Yeah. I still do that. And, I remember doing that maybe 5 years ago when I knew where the capacity I was at and he was still there. I would always try. That's funny you say that. I would always try to make decisions in my head and be like, all right, this is how I would do it. And let's see if that's the right way, if that makes sense. So I got a lot of validation before I took over on the decision-making process I had was actually in line where it should be. Yeah. So that was a good lesson for me. Me taking over, there was plenty of times where I would call him at night. I'm like, here's what I got. Here's what I'd like to do. Just bounce it off him. And he was a great mentor for that for me. And then even like post his death, there's been a handful of times for sure. I'm like, well, what would senior do? And I can just lean right into it and go like that.
How has the business, so how long have you been in construction now?
The business?
Yeah.
This is our 46th year.
So how has the industry and your job evolved over the decades? And what are some decisions that you have to make now that you think are different from what your dad was facing 25 years ago?
The industry in general has evolved the projects are larger, more complex. The expectations and the demands for the clients are just unrealistic nowadays. They just want it like this, boom, boom, boom. So also too, the amount of communication, notifications, technologies that we have in our face, like nowadays, is just compared to even 10 years ago is astronomical. So I think like with my dad, those decisions back when he was making it compared to where I'm at now in the industry, it's like there's so much going on at such a fast pace to where the only way to have a company to scale it successfully is you have to assemble a great team. You have to have a great team. So, I put a great team all the way around me. I don't want to be the smartest in the room. They're all experts in their own rights. So having them being able to filter through a lot of things really helps. And then leaning in on them, because I know exactly, it's almost like they got bumper lanes. I know the KPIs. I know what I need to look into, and I can just monitor and check that, like a very high level kind of stuff, and then work with them individually. But when you're dealing with 400 people, the decision making that happens with that is different than what my dad had.
Absolutely.
When you're looking at the revenue that we're at compared to where he was at, more specifically, the risk associated with all that revenue, the decision process is a lot different too, right? I'm coming from a standpoint where we have to continuously get work, and we're looking for other avenues to grow that market sector, be sustainable, maybe compared to where he was like totally fine with, this status quo of where he wanted to be at, and he was comfortable just operating like that, right? So the strategy, the mindset of the strategy on the get work, the growth, the scale is different than just saying like, we'll just take them as they come and just be sustainable.
Do you think that's driven more by market dynamics, your personal drive to always be growing and improving, or both?
Both, for sure. Well, I don't know. So I think the market, we would grow regardless, I think, just because of the cost of labor, the cost of these jobs, like the volume, the cost of the actual projects, are comparably larger than they were 20 years ago. Yeah. So just by that, even if we were just to take a job at a time, we'd be doing more revenue, right? Yeah. But I would say it's not even both. And now I'm answering the question. I would say it's more my decision and more the mindset to grow it and to take it completely different in a different way.
What are some of the biggest projects you guys have done recently?
So we're currently finishing up. We're about 4 months away from it's about a $90 million project called the Conrack rental car facility at the airport. We're still in the middle of our Lander wastewater project. So off of Veterans Memorial for the city of Boise. It's like a $200 million wastewater project. It feels like our projects just in the last like 3 years, like the average project size is around like 20 million. So we've had some pretty big ones. We're in the middle of Micron right now. I think we've got about $140 million worth of work out there right now. We've been at Micron for many years.
You guys did the tower downtown?
Did the tower downtown.
What was that project like? That had to be a challenge.
Yeah, it was a challenge for sure. The biggest challenge on that was just going up 28 stories. You got 10 feet from the sidewalk and you're worried about things falling down.
For sure.
Right? And killing somebody.
Absolutely.
So rotating the decks, having a 5-day cycle to go vertical, making sure everything's staying within that structure, not falling down, and then making sure, everything's getting inside of that and just meeting schedule. It was very difficult, but a lot of pre-planning. Yeah. What I found is what we've done really well in the last 5 to 6 years is we built a great team. So we have great superintendents, great project engineers, project managers, project directors, all that stuff. And if you really just hire and go out and build the best team, the best builder, that's what I want. I wanted the best builders, all entrepreneur-minded individuals, pioneer thinking, let's change the game, this and that, and give them the bandwidth to have a little bit more autonomy, make some decisions. I mean, that's why we're able to build these jobs successfully like we've been doing. It's because we got great people.
Yeah. How do you find these people? What's your strategy for finding people that align with your values, the values of the organization, people that you think can help get McAlvain Construction to the next level?
So about 6 years ago, I'm a big fan of Darren Hardy.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
about 6 years ago, I was actually at the Darren Hardy work class. And the last day, I remember we're going through it, and it was all about like marketing, this and that. But the last day was like personnel, culture stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, hey, list down this one individual where you already know. Like, if you're thinking about them as far as like a termination, just write their name down and make it happen.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, oh, okay. I knew that individual's name. I wrote it down. And then it just got me thinking, it's like, okay, what I would like to do, we already have a great reputation. You know, we got a good reputation in the community. We got a good brand in the community. I was like, the one thing, not that we're missing, but what's going to take us to this next level is I want to just revamp who we are, the culture, our team. I want to rebuild the team. I want like A players.
Mm-hmm.
So in that moment in time, what I made my decision on was we're going to go all in, like on our social media, our culture. Everything was centered around, I wanted to get to a point where people came to us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to go out and look for all these advertising agencies or these placing people from the Bay Area or Seattle and big cities. Like, I wanted people to come to us. So it's like, all right, well, what do we need to do to get to that position? And it took like 6 years. But again, like, if you look at all of our social media, you look at who we are as a culture. I know you did our State of the Union, so we got a little sense of that.
Yep.
We went all out on creating the best environment that people want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had the mindset, if you take care of your people, you create a great environment, people want to come. And once they're come, that's the hardest part is building that.
Yep.
But once you build it, they want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of that tribe. They don't want to leave. And I think we're in a good spot. It's not perfect, but we've come such a far way in that far way from the beginning. And we're in a position now where, again, like, recruiting's much easier for us because friends, recommendations, people see it, hear about us, and they want to be a part of that.
Yeah. So it's not as simple as just going and seeking out people that you want. You've got to build something that they want to be a part of, first and foremost. I sat on a panel at a real estate event in New York last week called Inman Connect, and the panel was all about culture. So it's just good timing for us to have this conversation. But one of the things I want to go back to that you just said, because I pointed this out on the panel, that the culture is kind of, well, it's a multi-headed beast for sure. There's a lot of parts that go into it, but there's two things from a leadership standpoint I think about, Torry. One is like leading by example, which, as you know, is the only real kind of leadership there is. And people are going to watch you first and foremost to know how to treat each other.
Yeah.
And that's what forms culture, right? Is how we treat each other, especially how we treat each other when no one else is looking and there might not be ramifications, you know, in terms of people watching us. Like, you always have to treat your people the way that you want to see them spread that throughout the organization. Mm-hmm. But then the other part of it that I want to go back to is you don't just get what you give, you also get what you tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the part of leadership that I know for me was a challenge was, hey, this isn't as simple as just leading by example. If you've got people that are cancers, if you've got people that are toxic, you got to get rid of them. And it sounds like you've gone through that. Yeah,
that's the unfun part of being a leader nobody talks about, right? There's I know exactly what you're saying. And it gets to the point where you get what you tolerate. What I discovered in my leadership is if you allow those individuals to be a part of that team and you know the team's not even wanting them, the goal, first of all, is for the team to be able to push them out, right? And that happens, and that's great.
Yeah.
But if it's not enough for the team to push them out and you're as a leader actually tolerating it, it's going to come to a point where your team that you want and you believe in is going to now look at you and be like, they're going to lose respect in you, right? So you have to make those decisions. You got to do what's best for the culture. And again, like I said, it's not a fun part of the job. No one talks about it, but yeah, you have to have a pulse on all that stuff.
Yeah. And it's like, and I love the way that Darren Hardy or whoever was running that workshop put it, is like, if you think there's a question or if you think there's a problem, like, there is no question. Like, you know what the problem is.
Yeah.
Have you learned to trust your instincts more as you've got more experience?
Yeah, I for sure. I think I have a pretty good natural instincts and intuition, and I for sure lean into that. It's almost like I can walk in a room, walk in a meeting, and it's not all the time, because there's going to be a time where I'm going to walk in there, I already think I know the answer, and I can leave that meeting, I'm surprised. But it feels like I have enough intuition and instincts. I can walk in there and I can already tell the outcome like that, or I can feel it and all that. But I definitely lean into my intuition. I'm a very analytical individual. But I can process things very fast.
Yeah.
So things just make sense to me. So if they make sense to me, that's like the first filter. And then if like my gut's just saying it, it's a no-brainer, and you just take action, you move on.
Have you ever, what's a time, I guess, recently, maybe if you can think of a story where you thought you knew and you didn't?
Yeah, I got one for sure. I was actually just thinking about this the other day. Won't say their name, but there's an individual we had in our company about 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, and how he left, I did not like it at all. Fast forward to about a year ago, the team reached out. This individual wanted to come back to the team, and how it all left, I was like, again, my intuition, I was like, you guys were wasting our time here. I can already tell where this is going to go. The entire leadership team was like, we had these conversations. This individual's actually grown and changed and has a different outlook, and is owning and taking accountability. And I said, okay. So then I talked to that individual, and I was like, shit, okay. Like I was completely wrong in my initial judgment or what I thought was going to be and how it turned out. And this person came back to us, and they're fully bought in. They elevated their self-awareness and who they are as an individual. So it's like they're coming back at a different level. So yeah, that was one where I was like, okay, I was completely wrong on that.
So people can change.
People rarely, and I should know that, because I felt like I'm huge on second chances because of all this stuff I've been through. I've been sober now 7 years. Like I am big on second chances, and I know people can change.
Yeah.
I also know how difficult it is and how much discipline and focus you have to have and drive to be able to change.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can sense if they have that or not. But yeah, people for sure can change. And there's been maybe a handful of individuals I can think of on my hand in our company that I've actually seen successfully have changed compared to where I was like, it's already written. I know where they're going.
Sober 7 years. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
You got to be proud of that.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. It's to a point where it's not even that I'm proud of it. I don't ever sit back. I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of myself. It's just so natural and just habitual now.
But it wasn't, obviously.
Yeah. No, there was a point where I was even embarrassed. Like I was embarrassed to even say like, I'm sober. Because again, back to the expectations. I had all these expectations like, what are they going to think of me and this and that? I give zero shits anymore about any of that stuff. And now I'm to a point where it's like, the reason I only talk about it, and again, like if it gets brought up, I'll talk about it. But the only thing I care about now is if that affords somebody an opportunity who's thinking about, they want to become sober, or like why they want to become sober, and maybe it gives them a little boost to actually do it. Great. Like that's what
there's so much to unpack there, and we don't have the hours that it would take. But one of the questions I want to ask you about it was, talk a little bit about the role identity plays and you having to reshape and reform a new identity and stick to it. Yeah. When you decided that, hey, I'm going to change my life, because you decided and you became one of the rare people who really did change.
Yeah.
And you know how hard that is.
Yeah.
But what is the role that reasons and why and motivation and identity played in that decision for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors. At that point in time, I just had Aria. She was about 6 months old. And I remember it's like I graduated college, I got married, I got into work. All these were excuses like, oh, I'll end up, for me, my drug of choice was marijuana. I smoked a lot. And it was always like, I'll stop. And I had all these big reasons and nothing changed. And I got to a point where I was just like, there's got to be something more. I don't like being a slave to myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And me not being a slave to myself was enough. It is weird as it says. What Aria wasn't enough. Like my wife Jillian wasn't enough. It was me making my own decision was the only way, and is the only way through sobriety to do it. So first, it started with that at least choice that I wanted something new, and I didn't want to be a slave to myself. And I knew how much I have. I knew how much I knew what I could become too. And again, I was like capping myself. I didn't like that. So as far as like reconstructing the identity, that was the tough part, because I had a lot of, call it guilt, shame, Like there were so many times I'm like, am I kidding myself? Like, am I trying to pretend? Like I had to pretend I was somebody that I wasn't for the longest time until that me pretending became normal, if that makes sense.
It does.
And
that's that new identity.
That's very uncomfortable and it's very hard to do. But again, I knew what I wanted. I knew what I had to do to get there. I knew what I had to offer to long term. And I just stuck to the process, and I just truly believe like I can change my own destiny. And again, it was just weird. Like there's no other way to put it besides it was just weird and uncomfortable.
And obviously you stuck to it until the point where it wasn't as uncomfortable anymore. And it truly did feel like your new identity. Because at first it never does. Like at first it feels like I'm full of shit. This isn't really who I am. I'm faking it. But you're not. You're just stepping into a new identity. But it's so incredibly hard.
And the crazy thing is like anybody can do that. That's the thing. It's not like I'm doing anything special. Anybody in this world at any point in time can, as it relates to like their identity and who they think they are and what they believe about themselves, they can change that at any point in time.
But you have to be willing to sacrifice, whether you want to call them your idols or your golden calves or like the things that you kind of hold aside in your personal life and are not willing to let go of. And we all have them. I always think that's fascinating when I have these conversations with people that like before they can ascend to who they really know they can be, it's like you've got to put that stuff aside.
Yeah. Totally.
And step into a new identity. So it's an interesting, I think, dichotomy, right? Because we know that it's possible because we've done it. But then at the same time in your day-to-day life, it's really easy to fall into this rhythm of like, no, people can't change.
Totally.
They are who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, things that I did is I surrounded myself with different individuals. That's for sure. So I surrounded with a lot of love, support, also individuals who were just way outside, like above where I was and always wanted to be there, right? From either like a family man aspect or just in business. Like I always surrounded myself with very, very high achievers. So that like helped me push. And then I read a lot of books and did a lot of self-introspective. So just surrounding myself with caring individuals, people with like just high level individuals and reading all that book, it just became like a norm and I didn't think anything different. That makes sense.
What are some of the books you read, some of the mentors you had, people that inspired you?
The first book I read that really kind of got my mind going in this new direction was called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, I've read it.
Yeah, highly recommend that. That one, Ryan Holiday, Obstacle is a Way is a good one as well. But the Eckhart Tolle really started my journey. I don't know. I feel like I've always been an intuition and philosophical individual. Like I've always just been curious. Like there's more to life than what we see. I've always just been drawn to that concept. And when I got into Eckhart Tolle, it just made complete sense to me, like as it relates to just the power of now and how we are in the present moment. And truly what the present moment is the only thing that matters. Not even what, I walked into your office here like 30 or 40 minutes ago. Who cares? That's already the thing of the past.
That's right.
Me thinking about the meetings I have the rest of the day and all these things I got to go. I could get my heart rate up. I can get anxiety thinking about it, but that doesn't matter. Like all that matters is right now. And just having that mindset for me really got me in tune with myself, my self-awareness at a different level. So that helped for sure. The Obstacle is a Way with Ryan Holiday was a great one just because that's a mindset I'm just very attractive to as it relates to like, there's all these obstacles throughout the day, but what a great opportunity throughout the day that we just get to keep learning and developing. Like there's nothing you can put in. Literally, I faced death for my dad. And like, even I don't want to say defeated that, but I overcame that. There's nothing I feel like you can throw at me that I can at least, it's not that it's going to be easy or uncomfortable, but I can at least grow from and take away and be like, all right, this is going to at least help me for, my next 20 or 50 years on this earth.
I'm currently reading through Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, and obviously Ryan Holiday was, a student of Stoicism and wrote book after book after book about that philosophy. And I just, at the backbone of all that is this radical ownership, just radical self-ownership over your life and over your decisions. How does that play a role in your life today?
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations is a great book. Taking ownership. At the end of the day, I always think like this. Like, at the end of the day, Like there's nobody out in this world that can fuck with me. When I say that, meaning like I have complete control on how I show up in this world. Like there is nobody or there's no circumstance that can fuck with me. And to me, that's an invigorating, powerful feeling, like very powerful. And just taking complete ownership on how I show up is, again, it's just a very powerful feeling.
Yeah. Our culture is victim mentality.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's everywhere in our culture, in our society. And the antidote to that is ownership. But it doesn't seem like anybody wants to hear that message. It's something that I want to get out there as a part of doing this show in the first place. What are your thoughts about that? How do you guard yourself against the victim mentality? What do you think about that with your kids? You know, what do you communicate to them about taking ownership over their decisions?
Yeah, I definitely noticed for myself that call it triggers. I get triggered by the victim mentality, and that's something I'm working on, and I'm trying to understand like why. Yeah, it's very interesting. So like with my kids and Jillian for sure, like we don't allow them, like even when they're sick, like we're just like singing the happy cell song. Like you're fine. Like believe it. Like you can get better. It's interesting with my daughter. She naturally has a little bit more of a victim mindset compared to like my other kids. The other two are very little. So you can kind of see a little bit in her innate, but the way we raise our kids, again, it's just like, no, you can do anything you want and you're not feeding them bullshit, because what you're saying is you can do anything and you're probably going to fail 50 times. But even when you fail those 50 times, think how much better you are because of it, right? So like that's what we try to do in our household with our kids. I definitely do that at work too, because it's trying to be a living example of it. But yeah, I honestly, I don't understand the mindset and the victim mentality, because it just, and again, it used to trigger me. And it doesn't trigger me more, not that I care, but I'm to a point where it's like, there's no sense of me. Honestly, it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm not trying now to understand why they're thinking like that. More importantly, I'm not even going to judge them why they're thinking like that. I'm just going to keep moving on, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah.
I'm a control freak. I think you probably are as well. You know, and the thing about the victim mentality that is so destructive is you're surrendering control of your life to whatever you're blaming.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever you're blaming something else, you're literally acknowledging that thing has power over you.
Yeah.
And it's only, and I don't think people always understand this on the surface. And it's taken me a lot of reading and meditating and failing to understand this, but it's only when you say like, it's my fault, or here's the parts of it that are my fault, that now you take control over it and you can actually move forward with your life.
It's the only way you can move forward with it. That's the only way you can take the actual next step, is just saying, here it is. And then like being able now to come into it. It's all on the table, see it for what it is, and then take the next step. And
I know for me I'm sure you're the same way, as a team leader and an owner of a company, man, that's something that is, speaking of triggering. Yeah, it's pretty triggering for me. Like, because I know, and you know, that if we don't do that, if we take ownership over our decisions and we're honest with each other as a team, man, it's like there's nothing we can't accomplish. Like we can fix anything.
Totally.
You know, we can fix anything. Like there's nothing so big that you can't fix it when you are honest and take ownership. But the second you start pointing the finger and blaming somebody or something else, it's just full stop, because now we can't fix it, right? You can't fix the problem.
Yeah.
So I kudos to you for trying to have more empathy for that. I think I probably should have more empathy.
Yeah, I'm trying. Like I said, it's very difficult. My team knows me well enough. Like here's the interesting thing about the business world is, in real life over here, I surround myself with very specific individuals, more importantly, specific characteristic type of individuals. In the business world, like now it's a little different, because some of these individuals that work for you don't have these traits over here. Now you can do the best you can over here. I think we do a great job in our company. Like one of the attributes we have is self-starters, and we don't have really a big room for victim set mentality individuals, because they'll get pushed out. But it's not perfect. And you surround yourself with some of these individuals that probably you went over here. So I have to work on myself daily as a leader, because I don't understand it, right? So I just use it as a challenge for some of these, to instead of just writing them off, which would be the easiest thing to do. And quite frankly, I've done it before. I challenge myself and look, I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to try to elevate my level as a leader. I'm going to try to grow and develop myself. I'm going to ask these individuals these specific questions. I'm going to show up to them like this. Not that I'm like allowing it to happen, but I'm trying to like develop myself in a different way by like pushing into that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But well, that's real leadership, is to get down in the mud with them and see if you can figure it out and see if you can guide them in a better direction, or it's to see if it's the core to who they are. Maybe they're not a good fit as a teammate, but either way,
you got to figure it out.
It's weak leadership to just discard them and not even want to engage.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that we all want to do naturally, I think, is it's easier. I want to go back to something you said earlier, shift gears a little bit. So you mentioned sports and validation and identity. And believe me, like, I played football all the way through college. All I ever wanted to do from birth was play professional football, which I didn't get to do. And you probably remember enough about being around me at Boise State that football was the only thing that I cared about. And so I have a very intimate understanding of what it means to lose that identity. And we all go through the same thing. Like, you play sports, at some point you're not going to play sports anymore. You know, and then you also mentioned validation from your dad, which I think any man understands and struggles with in some way and seeks in some way. Where does Torry get validation today?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I can honestly sit here and say how I get validation for me is just me showing up throughout the day. So for instance, this morning on a Mondays are not my favorite. Typically I do slower Mondays. I wake up with the kids, help Jill get them ready for school. I go do the gym before I get into the office, just because it like takes me a minute to get my brain rolling. So, you know, we got a podcast here with Nick, and it's like, you know, I feel a little of those Monday blues, but you know what? I'm here. I'm present. For me, showing up to things I don't want to do, not that I don't want to do this, but you know what I'm saying, but me showing up to things where I'm not in a flow state, put it that way. That's a better way of saying it. That gives me confidence and that gives me validation, because it's like, you know what, that was hard, but I did it and I showed up. Maybe I wasn't the best mindset, but I showed up. So like me putting myself and just like not even checking the box, but just like, shit, I showed up. That gives me self-validation. And like, honestly, that's where I get it from now. I don't get it from external. I don't get it from this and that. I just get it about, did I show up? And I know, and everybody knows, you can't lie to yourself.
That's right.
And as long as I'm not lying to myself and I'm staying aligned with who I am, that's where my self-validation comes in.
Yeah. God, it's so interesting. And learning how to get it from yourself on your own actions. Because as long as you're trying to get it from somebody else, you're captive.
And it's, hey, and I'm not perfect. Like, I'm still learning. And like I said, man, I was forced. Like, sobriety definitely got me to another level of awareness, for sure. But man, I didn't really know who I was. And I was really forced into learning who I was when my dad died. Like, honestly, that took me to another level. There was time when I was sober to when my dad was alive where I thought I was doing things my way. I was still operating off conditioned thoughts that weren't even my thoughts, were truly authentic. And I actually was still seeking validation externally, especially from my dad. So I can, you know, I'm not perfect, but luckily for me, I was forced, and I can honestly say I don't have any of that anymore. And it only comes from the inside. And that's the thing too, is like I seen it firsthand. Like, none of this, like, money, all, like, who cares if you work all this hard and at the end of the day, if you have all this money, like, if you don't have a relationship with yourself, you don't feel good about what you did, and you just have been lying to yourself just to make other people happy, like, that's a miserable way to be. And I don't want anything to do with that when I'm older. So I'm going to start on that at a younger age. And it's hard because we're young, we're in business.
So true.
We're trying to get relationships. We're trying to get business. So like, you know, we're always authentic, but kind of caught to play the game a little bit. So, but it's a slippery slope to get caught up in that, if that makes sense. You gotta always stay true to who you are.
It is. And I think of it as trying to hold things loosely. In other words, like, you care, you're driven, you work, but I never want my identity to get wrapped up in what I do to make money. Like, I never want that to become who I am. And that's the biggest mistake I've made with sports, is I let that happen. But that's my nature, is like to lean so far into something that it just becomes part of who I am. And that's my lifelong journey. One of many is to try to hold it looser and to understand that things come and go and life changes. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges you have when you're like you and like me and you're driven. Back to your dad, I read something about 10 years ago in a book, and this is so random, but I think it was called like The Way of the Superior Man. It was written by David. I don't even remember the guy's last name. And it said that as a man, you basically can never develop into your full self until your father passes away. And that screwed me up. I read this like 15 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. I can still remember reading it for the first time. And it was one of those things you read and you're like, that is the biggest crock of shit. But I've never been able to forget it. And I just heard you say something that hits along those lines. Like you still felt that need to get that validation, so kudos to you for keeping your head up and going through it and learning what you can learn, because that's powerful.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And I never forgot that quote. I don't think that's true for everybody, but I think for some of us it is.
Yeah.
And I also would just point out that, your mess becomes your message, and your shit that you've gone through has given you superpowers. And you just mentioned that about sobriety. Like, things that other people don't know because of what you went through. Like, you were forced to go so deep into yourself and learn more about who you were and who you wanted to be. And a lot of people, frankly, have never had to do that because they've never had that challenge. And I don't know how aware you are of that on a daily basis or how much you think about it, but truly, like, those things have given you superpowers.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't think about it on a daily basis.
Probably not, because it's just who you are.
Yeah.
But this journey that I see people go into of like self-improvement and deep self-reflection and reading, and like, you got to have a reason to do that shit.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, unfortunately, that reason is struggle.
Yeah.
That reason is like something you're grappling with.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, I need that. I mean, unfortunately, how I learn is I can watch people and learn what not to do, but really I have to just like be in the line of fire and figure it out for myself. Like, I know that about myself. Yeah. I got to take action and I got to adjust. That's the only way I'm going to learn.
Well, and having your back against the wall. And that's, a through line I've seen in your story just in visiting with you for an hour. And obviously we know each other outside of this podcast, but like the trip down to Vegas and, academic struggles at Boise State, and then your journey with sobriety. It's like, you kind of have to have like your back against the wall, but that's also when you perform your best.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Totally.
A business question I'll ask you, Torry. Struggle for all companies, I think, and I want to talk to you about how McAlvain handles this and how you handle it, is that you have to push yourself. You have to get outside of your comfort zone. At the same time, as a business, you kind of got to stay in your lane. I mean, those are two messages that we always get. Stay in your lane, do what you're good at. Don't step outside of that as a business. And then you also hear, well, you've got to grow. You got to step outside your comfort zone. How does McAlvain handle that? And maybe specifically with your projects. So you get projects that are brought to you all the time, I'm sure. How do you run that through your filter? How do you decide what you're going to do versus that maybe is something you've done before versus saying, hey, this is new, but we're going to try it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. To me, I like the challenge of the only thing that I won't do is I won't work for a shitty person. Put it that way. So if there's an opportunity, I don't care how great the opportunity is and what we can grow and develop from that. If that person's a shitty person, I will not work for them. So you take that out of the equation. I have zero. That's, again, back to the team, like how important it is to hire experts, self-driven individuals, all these optimistic individuals. So then when we have opportunities, we're like, oh yeah, maybe it's a little outside of our wheelhouse. But again, back to what you were saying, like you get on the same page with your team. There's nothing that we can't conquer. So the only thing that we stay in our lane with is just making sure that, we're not getting something too much out of our areas of expertise where I'm like, shit, I have, like, the moment I will walk into a job, I'm like, I have no idea what we're doing. That's probably too much risk. There's definitely been times where the moment we walked into the job, we already at least had a plan because we thought about it. And it's like, all right, let's go execute this plan. But we're definitely outside of our comfort zones. As long as I can, congregate a plan and where we want to go and how we're going to attack the job, let's do it. If we're just completely like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Well, which I've done a lot of times. So now I'm sitting here thinking about it. There's been plenty of times actually I'm like, well, we'll figure out. But even in that scenario, I already had an automatic filter system. I knew we could figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there is a intuitional bumper lanes where I'm like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Anything besides outside of here, it's like, it's not even worth it at that point in time.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does.
It doesn't really answer your question.
Well, I think there's both a qualitative and a quantitative aspect to that, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's definitely a gut instinct. There's definitely a tolerance that you've developed over the years of what you think you can push and what you can't, and your team. And you have to have comfort with your team to know the same thing about how far they can push themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why this is an art in so many ways, which probably drives you nuts because you're a numbers guy.
Totally. Yeah. There's definitely, that's a good point. There's a qualitative and quantitative data point for a lot of this stuff. And some of it, things are too good to not take the advantage. I can look back, honestly, in like our last 10 years and think of every job that I said yes to where we didn't have a plan and it just got us to this next stage.
Yeah. And the scariest and most exciting ones, I think, are the ones where it's like, you know that in order to succeed at the project, you're going to have to grow. You know they're going to have to
push right
almost like look like a completely different team by the time you're done.
Yeah.
If it's going to go the way you want it to go.
That's a good thought. So I remember we hired the superintendent, a huge national firm called Henson Phillips. I think they're out of Denver, Colorado. Anyways, we hired a superintendent, been there his whole life, top-notch guy. And I remember he came to our company, he was with us. This was like 6 years ago and ended up leaving us less than a year. And I'll never forget the feedback. At that time, his feedback was like, hey, man, I really like you, your vision, where you're going. You guys just aren't there yet. And I need something bigger. And I'll never forget that because then I was like, that was in the moment in my head. I was like, exactly what you're saying. I was like, oh, fuck. If we want to be a big boy company, we better look like it and act like it. And from that moment in time, again, back to the feedback and using it as an opportunity, I remember we start rolling things out. We're like, all right, we're going to now, whatever this looks like over here, doesn't matter. This is who we are. This is how we operate. This is how we show up. These are our standards. And then I guess just over the course of time, again, that was our new identity. And I'll never forget that moment in time. It's like, all right, that was a kick in the nuts to hear that feedback.
Yeah, you didn't like hearing that.
I didn't like it. So, but again, what are you going to do about it? You're going to just listen to it, or are you going to actually do something about it?
Yeah. Well, you've done something about it.
Yeah, done something about it, no doubt.
What are you most excited about for 2026 and looking forward for McAlvain?
The thing I'm most excited about, so we got a new partnership with Allquist Development. I'm definitely most excited about that. Specifically, I've very much so enjoyed working with Tommy, Allquist. I think the opportunities are going to come from them. And then just the opportunities that even working or being associated with Tommy that will roll off of that too are just two awesome things that really get me excited. It's fun to be around a very high, strong energy individual, big picture kind of individual as well. So that definitely has me excited. We're also standing up a new market vertical in our company, part of our 2030 plan strategically. And we've already hired a VP, putting all the pieces where we need to and just getting this thing going. And I mean, that's very energizing for me because that's like looking out next 10 years on how we're going to sustain this amount of work for forever. Well,
that's exciting. Man, that's
awesome.
awesome.
That gets me going. So it's like Allquist, this new market vertical. Those things really get me going for McAlvain. I mean, there's just a lot of opportunity there.
What about climbing? You like climbing mountains.
Yeah.
That gets you going personally. Tell me about that.
So probably similar to you, I like doing things that are just physically challenging and mentally challenging. To me, I like pushing myself to that exhaustion physically and mentally, and then just knowing on the other side of that, that's where greatness is. So climbing, what I found anyways, is a great way to just get physically and emotionally, mentally burnt. And finding yourself where it's like you're already at, 10,000, 12,000 feet up there. You're already, miles away from everything. You've already spent half of a day where you're just going to quit or you're just going to keep going, right? So I just, and I don't know. I just like putting myself in situations where one step at a time, literally. And that's the only way through it. In a weird way, I do, maybe it changes a little bit now that I got 4 kids. I got to be a little bit more, I I got to think about them a little bit more. But at the same time, I'm not going to slow down with things that challenge me and push me. Like, I'm not going to be as crazy,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
But I also, that's just who I am. And, you know, I would like to think, even if I were to pass at a younger age from doing one of these things that I love, I know at least in my heart, I feel like they would someday look back at it and just be like, you know, they would have a lot of admiration that dad was doing something that's pushing it to the boundaries, right? Like, I don't ever want to take away or cut my life short for them. But at the same time, like, I know they would respect that as they're older. And that's something that I need that stuff, you know? I mean, that's how do you think I stay sober for 7 years? You know what I mean? Like, all the shit that I'm in with business and all the things I want to do, like, the only thing, I mean, meditation will do so much. Relaxation will only do so much for me. The other part of me is just straight thrill. Like, I have to have that.
Yeah. I've never found anything quite like climbing, especially high altitude mountaineering. It's like such a microcosm of life. You know, you one step at a time, you have good days, you have bad days, you just don't quit. There's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of different paths to the top, but the closer you get, the higher you climb, they all come together. And I know there's just so much to me. I've thought that climbing kind of encapsulates. That's one of the reasons I've always loved it. But just like you, I have to be challenged. I have to push myself. And once you figure out also like overcoming these physical challenges, like the confidence that gets you in the rest of your life, I wish everybody knew that. That's one of the things I always say is like, I wish everybody knew how confident you get outside of physical, like mentally and professionally when you do really difficult physical things.
Totally. Yeah. It's not fun doing that. Like,
No.
nobody, like, it is not fun at all.
Well, football wasn't fun.
Exactly.
Like games were fun, but no, there's nothing fun about football practice. There's nothing fun about 5:45 a.m. Sprints and weight training, and so for me, it's like I've got to have something to replace that with.
And I think too with mountain climbing, this, it's very, it's quiet out there. There's no music. Like you can't have music on because there's so many hazards at all point in time. You got to be able to hear. There's no music playing. There is only you and your thoughts. And to me, I don't know, I like being in my own thoughts like that too, because I got a lot of clarity on life, what's next in business, this next step in front of me. Like, I think about all those things as I'm climbing, all different parts.
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite parts about it. In fact, I was on Denali for 3 weeks last year, and I didn't even have earbuds to listen to music.
Yeah.
And guys were like, what are you talking about? You're nuts. Like, you're walking all day long on the glacier for weeks in a row. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking.
And it's such a good practice in 2026. Like, us humans, we are so far removed from being comfortable in our own thoughts.
Yeah.
So far removed from that. Yeah. And it's so healthy to do that.
I agree.
Back to that.
How was Rainier?
It was good. Rainier was very challenging. So we went in May, right from the get-go. So I think it's called Paradise Lot, the lot where you park in.
Yep.
Right from there all the way up, it was the snow. So it was very challenging. Yeah. But it was a good time. It was a great time. I love it.
Who'd you go with?
So I went with my buddy Todd Gardner.
Okay.
Good friend of mine from high school. I've known him throughout the years.
Cool.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And that's, again, challenging. Like physically, I love doing this stuff. Physically, Todd does, like, we do marathons together. So I know he's physically fit, but mountaineering was totally out of his wheelhouse. But for him just to show up and push through it, because he's got that mindset, he was like, holy fuck, dude. I was like, yeah, right. And it was also too fun to go with. Like, him and I have a special connection and good friends. But going through something like that was a whole nother, like, level of connection bonding that we had too. Something that, like, nobody will experience. Like, I mean, shit, there was times where we thought we were going to die, literally out there, just wide out, going to die. So it's, like, in a weird way, kind of fun being with him on that.
What's next? What do you want to climb next?
So I was actually looking at it. It's called Mount Shakura. It's in the Cascades. It's about 2 hours northeast of Seattle.
Cool.
All glacier.
It's kind of up by Baker.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all level 3-4 climbing. So I'm thinking about doing that in July.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
My goal is I want to do the tallest peaks in all 50 states. I think I got about 8 of them down. Really, the taller ones. Denali is by far the biggest one. But I figured I can end like in Florida or Tennessee when I'm older and just like run up a little hill.
I met a guy that when I was on Rainier 2 years ago. There was a guy that was his last one.
Rainier was?
Yeah, he
Ooh,
was doing all
nice.
50.
I
Yeah.
love it.
He was an interesting cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, to say the least.
Alaska will by far be the hardest. And but now that I've done Rainier, more comfortable in actual glacier climbing, at least seen it. I'm ready to at least take that next step.
Yeah. Well, Torry, we're about at time. You're a force to be reckoned with. Appreciate you being on the show.
Appreciate it.
What, if anything, would you like to leave people with?
I don't know why I always have this saying or this thought in my head. And again, just it's how you do one thing is how you do everything. I think that's a lot of the feedback I get from individuals who are closest to me that they love the most about me is how passionate I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just anything and every, like even today I'm showing up, like I'm just going to be here present. I'm going to go savagely just showing up. So it's like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yep.
And I think that's a huge opportunity for people to achieve success and whatever success is in their life. If they just have that mindset, and again, who cares when people aren't watching, what decisions are you making? And are you the same individual? You just as passionate? Because I can almost guarantee you is if people aren't watching and you're just as passionately and you're doing the right things and how you're doing them, that's going to translate to every aspect of your life. And you're going to find whatever success is to you, you're going to achieve it.
I couldn't have said any better myself. Thanks, brother.